Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, it's Wednesday, and you know what that means. We're belly back up to the bar. We have with us today, I'm a lucky man. I have two beautiful women that have joined me today. I have my wife upstairs. She doesn't know it. I got two beautiful women on the screen. I can't tell her about it. She'll probably find out in here in a minute because she always watches. But I think I'll be okay because she's heard me talk about Kristin and she's heard me talk about Margaret coming up here. So we have with us today Miss Kristin Manna, a mover and shaker, a world and life changer in the political realms of California. We have Miss Margaret Downey, a lovely woman who has brought to the forefront one of our forefathers so that we remember one of the architects that brought us this nation that we have to argue about today. So I have to say, ladies, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast. In fact, if I got a new, there it is. Wait.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I got a new soundboard, so I lost track of where my sound effects were.
Just we clap, we'll clap.
Look at that. So, welcome, ladies. We're gonna get into it, folks. We're talking. This is unique. So somebody brought this up. We were doing a TikTok live before the show, and somebody was like, "Oh, look, my wife. See, my wife even said she was excited to watch.
Oh,
look at that."
Hi,
But somebody brought this up to me. They're like, "Oh, why are you talking about politics? That just brings up arguments." And I had to make them understand that this isn't politics that makes us can't stand each other.
mhm.
This is more of that. Hey, I want to be involved, but I don't want to stand in front of the camera. I don't want to be that person. How do I get my voice out there, or how do I get heard in politics? How can I influence it? And I think that's what Kristin's done.
Oh,
And Margaret's kind of reminding us that I've always felt like Thomas Paine is the forgotten forefather.
mhm.
Like people are like, Thomas Paine, I know that name. I've heard of that name, but I think they don't realize he's the architect of the revolution that most of us are lacking today, common sense. He wrote that, and we were talking about this before, and I will say it, one of the greatest lines in all of politics: government at its best is a necessary evil. At its worst, it's an intolerable one. I love that, written in common sense. And I think that's something that for a lot of us we should think about today. But let's go ahead and get our house cleaning done so we can get into this and we can talk about these different things. You guys figure it out. You can rock, paper, scissors, who goes first. We can just go back and forth. We'll figure it out, though. As always, folks, we got the big board over my shoulder for Sticker and a Cause. Maybe you've got a political thing that you're pushing for, a foundation you're supporting, an association, Girl Scout troop. I don't care what it is, but you've got something out there. You reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, even our email. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Reach out. Let me know what you got going on. I'll give you an address to send a sticker to. You send me out the sticker with a little bit of a write-up on what it is. We'll read about it and we'll put it up on the board for Sticker and a Cause. So again, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, email, all of the Above the Bar podcast, and email is at gmail.com. Now, maybe your media is looking like it came from 1775 and was written on parchment, and you need to upgrade that a little bit. You need to reach out to Media by Dibs, and that's DIBS. Reach out to Media by Dibs on Instagram, on Facebook, Media by Dibs, or if you go on to LinkedIn, it's going to show up as Andrew Dibble, DIBBLES, and you let him know that you're there to belly up to the bar. He's going to give you a 10% discount on your first order and a free consultation. You can always tell on our posts when Dibs made it for me and when I made it. I look like a fifth grader did it. Dibs looks like somebody who does this for a living does it. You can very easily tell these things. So again, Media by Dibs. And for those of you that are listening and watching right now, please like, share, subscribe, do all those things and share this out to all the different groups that are out there so they know what we got going on. So house cleaning is done. All that's out of the way. Everything is ready to go. How are you ladies today?
Oh, so great. It's just so nice to be back on the show with you, Sean. I swear I'm like it's like a little highlight in my week when I listen to you. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
it's like a smile. It's like a refreshing time to just sit back and try to relax in the world of politics.
I, if
Which
I
is
could hug
not
you, I
always so
would.
easy.
If I could hug you, I would right now.
Well, Sean, I do want to congratulate you on reciting one of my favorite Thomas Paine quotes that came from Common Sense. And what he was talking about was that the government is really owned by the people. It isn't really, a government unless it is for and by the people. So he was referring to it being a necessary evil, but not tolerable unless citizens were involved, voting in politics, helping to make legislation and helping to form our country and keep our democracy.
Well, I think that you bring up such a great point, and that's where Kristin and what she's doing. Again, like I said, not all of us belong in front of the stage and want to stand up there and go through all that. I mean, if you really think about it, you would be able to tell me better than I know, Margaret. But I don't think Thomas Paine was like an Adams who stood up there rah rah and fire and brimstone and was beating everything. He wrote things and sent it in. He communicated in that way. Today, he would be the equivalent of like a blogger or a vlogger
Or a
or, or,
podcaster.
or a podcaster. That's I mean, well, I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
But he was very well known as a person that appeals to the common citizen, and he was never a dandy. He did not go in for fancy clothes or powdered wigs and all the fancy things that Benjamin Franklin tried to get him to do when he took Thomas Paine to Paris. And even Thomas Jefferson would comment about how Thomas Paine would refuse to get dressed up. He really was every citizen's reflection of just common sense and the truth. Thomas Paine never hesitated to speak the truth, even if it meant being hated by people, being scorned by people. Even he would comment about his positions with his friends. All of our founding fathers owned slaves. Thomas Paine did not. And
It's funny you say that you brought that up because I was going to ask that question. Like, we hear so much today, and I've spoken on this on the show many a times, where people get so in an uproar about the statues and everything, and I'm like, you do realize most of those were put up in the late 40s, early 50s, and if you look at who they were labeled after, they were in the South heavily, and most of the people in those statues were actually, I don't know what the right word for it, but it was a underhanded way to affect the civil rights movement. They had nothing to do with actually, man, we're really proud of this forefather and we want you to know about him. It was more of a, this is, we can kind of throw this out there and you won't realize it until you really look into it.
Mm-hmm.
So Paine wasn't, so he was truly, when we talk about equality and for the time, because he was still a landowner and all those things and had the right to vote. So that put him on a different level, but he still spoke for people who couldn't.
Right, including Native Americans. He was also a negotiator for treaties with the Iroquois Nation. And so he had wonderful things to say about the Iroquois. In fact, he called them his brothers. And so he was one of the first of our founding fathers to recognize the value of Native Americans. And we also know that he was one of the first veterans. He served in the Continental Army And rather than using his musket, which he did carry, most Quakers would never carry a musket.
Was he a Quaker too? I don't think I knew he was a Quaker.
His father was a Quaker.
Okay.
And he was reared in both the Anglican Church and with some Quaker influences. But his quill was his musket. His words were more powerful than any musket bullet could fire.
I got one for Kristin. Kristin, did you know this? That our government, most people would tell you, oh, well, our government is based on the Romans. It's not. Do you know who Thomas Jefferson actually patented most of the way we do business today in our government on? The
What was
Native
that?
Americans.
Oh, interesting.
He was a big he was highly influenced by the Native Americans. And if you look at the way they used to do things, every so many years they would get all the nations together. They would talk about issues, talk about treaties, talk about problems, and they would send representatives from each nation to meet at a central location and discuss all these things and then go back. But that one person was a representative for their nation.
And what was really, really wonderful for Thomas Paine to observe is that when they would come to have these treaty negotiations and meetings, they would bring women and children, and they were considered very valuable to the process. So, a lot can be said for the way the Native Americans treated their women and their young children.
Very, 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 very different than what we would think today in our mindset. Nathan, I didn't realize it. Nathan says Richard Henry Lee was his 10th great grandfather and was 13 colonies president and signed the Declaration of Independence. Well, look at that.
Oh.
And if he only saw you now, Nathan, and knew how you picked at fantasy football, how would he feel about that? How would that many greats feel about your fantasy football picks? I'm curious. Because I know they're not good.
Well, cheers to his lineage.
Yes.
Salute.
Yes. Oh, there's so many.
So.
Oh, can I add something about?
Yes,
Thomas
please,
Paine?
because I want to.
Gosh, when I started doing some research, and I've given several presentations, not as many as Margaret. I mean, I have just started this, but I really, really am proud of his legacy. And I think all Americans should be proud of him today because, as we were talking about, he was a thinker far ahead of his time. He opposed slavery and favored abolition, like Margaret had said, but he established the first welfare system for the poor. He created pensions. And here's what I love. He was an inspiration for early suffragists to demand equal rights for women. I love that.
He really, and Margaret and I were emailing back and forth, and I got to agree with her. He was a libertarian for his time.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there because so am I.
Yeah.
I don't think they had names for particular parties back then. But he was a deep thinker, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I asked Margaret about this because I gave a presentation for some GOP influencers, and they asked me, they said, was Thomas Paine a Republican? And Margaret said that he didn't ascribe to either party. So he might be an NPP these days or a libertarian.
Yeah, independent or libertarian. Problem with being a libertarian is nobody listens to us.
Yes.
One of his best friends, Cleo Rickman, actually named his son Thomas Paine Rickman, but he listed himself as a Republican, and they were lifelong friends. In fact, Rickman actually visited him on his deathbed. So it was, a long, cherished relationship. Thomas Paine has had a lot of children named after him. Madame Bonneville and Nicholas Bonneville, he lived with them for about 5 years, and they named their second son Thomas Paine Bonneville.
So I'm really curious. to this. So, as we said, this isn't the biggest name of that time unless you really know your history. This isn't Ben Franklin. This isn't Thomas Jefferson. This isn't, Adams, either one of them. This isn't, the biggest names of that time in our nation, but this is the architect.
Mhm.
Why? I know I throw all those things out and it kind of seems self-explanatory, but where for you, Margaret, does this passion towards Thomas Paine, and while I'm thinking about it, I almost forgot to do this. Look at this. This is why I got to remind myself of things. As you can see, scrolling along the bottom, the Thomas Paine Memorial.org. If you want to learn more about this, please take a look at it. Who's pinging? Is that me?
That's me. I'm turning it off. So sorry.
I'm sitting there like, oh gosh, this new soundboard. It's getting me right now. I have all these. I have all these wild. I'm not playing with them because now after everybody said something about my sounds here, I still like this one though. Let's see if you guys know who this is. You know who that was, right? The Duke. It was the Duke.
Oh, jeez.
So, but why? Again, why Thomas Paine?
Well, let me tell you that my very first encounter with Thomas Paine was brought about by an uncle of mine, an adopted uncle, actually. I started questioning religion. I started questioning what philosophy I might be attached to. And I was only about 10 years old. And I asked so many questions. And as I asked these questions, my uncle would give me reading material. So he gave me The Age of Reason. And I learned all about deism. And I just was so fascinated with Thomas Paine's look at nature's God, and that God can only speak through nature, not through men, not through priests, not through pastors or, people that claim they have the voice of God or the ear of God. So when you look at the natural world, you're looking at what a deist would say is God.
But you were 10. You were 10?
About 10. Yeah.
Can I introduce you to my 13-year-old that I can't get to brush his teeth, comb his hair, or take a shower every day, and you're reading Thomas Paine, you're discovering yourself.
Yes.
Well, the fact is we didn't have television, so reading was all we could do. So reading was also my escape. But I got so fascinated with Thomas Paine's life story because it's filled with life and death situations and adventures and wonderful things happen to him, and yet terrible things happen to him. So I put together a page-by-page synopsis of his life in the form of a coloring book. And I decided to start presenting this as an assembly for children. So I have been very fortunate to have delivered a Thomas Paine assembly at all the elementary schools across the country named after Thomas Paine, as
cool.
well as about 4 additional elementary schools. The story that I created about Thomas Paine's life and my delivery is very appealing to 6th graders who are just starting to learn about the colonial period. And so I really love presenting the Thomas Paine story. I've got it in a PowerPoint presentation and music, and I'm always in costume, which the kids love. And
really?
Yes, I dress as Madame Bonneville to tell the story. And I always pick children out of the audience to read his first poem, and then I pick a teacher to read a passage from the American Crisis Papers. But I dress the teacher up in a wig and a hat and a colonial shirt, and the kids just go crazy seeing their teachers being abused by me, putting fake hair on their head. And
How fun. Oh my gosh.
So I'm curious, do you know offhand how many elementary schools that is named after Thomas Paine?
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's 3 across the country that you've talked to, plus another 4. Now, what area do you live in, if you don't mind saying?
Well, I'm bi-coastal, so I spend majority of the time on the East Coast and the West Coast.
Well,
Yes,
you messed me up there for a minute, Margaret. I was about to say, oh, well, we're pretty open around here, and then you said coastal. I was like, oh, okay,
usually
never
I
mind.
give a pregnant pause between the word bi and coastal.
Hey, I mean, whatever gets them listening. I guess that's how that works, isn't it? Whatever
Right,
gets them listening. So,
right.
well, now, what's your East Coast home?
I'm near Philadelphia.
I thought so.
So yeah, when I first moved here in the 1990s, my first adventure was to find all the locations where Thomas Paine lived when he arrived to the area. And I couldn't find a thing. But I did find an educator, an 80-year-old educator who noticed me at the mayor's office trying to get a proclamation passed for Thomas Paine Day. We became fast friends, and we together had a street named after Thomas Paine, a plaza named after Thomas Paine, a historical marker where Common Sense was published. And we were working on so many other things that didn't come to fruition quite yet, but I will never give up. I'm going to hopefully see a statue of Thomas Paine at the new American Museum of the Revolutionary War, or someplace in Old City. But yeah, we keep pushing forward.
Yes,
Oh, by the way, there's a skate park. I had nothing to do with this, but the skate park is named the Ben Franklin Thomas Paine Skate Park.
oh my
I
gosh.
I feel like a loser next to you two ladies. I just want you to know that.
I
I think about what the two of you have done, and I think about, I'm over here like excited for a new bourbon, and I'm like, woo, there's new bourbon. And when I was trying to figure out, because I knew you were close to Philadelphia, I was gonna ask you like, what do you, Wawa? You like going to Wawa, and then you're like, I found all these, I couldn't find anything, and I created all this stuff and got things named. You guys are amazing. I so suck. I so suck right now. I'm just an old guy with a good beard, and I suck. You guys are awesome.
No, I'm going to propose a toast to Sean for
No,
putting on this podcast.
yes.
I mean, I'm thinking about the two of you, and I'm like, these ladies are awesome. I'm just over here like a big dork, like, hey, you hear the new season of Letterkenny's out? This is great. And then you guys are over here like making historical things happen. So you just found, that's so amazing that an uncle gives you a book, and here it is 15 years later, and you're making all these things happen. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. But we know that we need help. And when I found Kristin, I was so excited because she opened the doors to a lot of Republicans that we need on board for our next project, which is to put a memorial in somewhere in Washington, D.C., or its environs. That's how the bill reads. It's House Bill 6720.
Mhm.
And so far, we have 16 co-sponsors, and 2 of which are Republican. And Kristin is plugging along, trying to find more to sign on as co-sponsors, because by the time this goes to vote, we're hoping to have quite the majority to show that it is a bipartisan effort.
Yeah, like why
It's,
wouldn't it be? So how did you get, so tell me how the two of you met. Kristen, I want to hear your side of this.
oh my gosh. Well, let me just tell you, I was on the campaign trail, and I see all these people that I know and these elected officials, and I want to bring them, a new candidate. They're like, oh great, here comes Kristin, who's the new candidate. She wants us to talk to, blah blah blah. And so I'm like, hey, I'm like, so and so, I'm like, let me introduce you to my new candidate. They're like, oh great. And then they're like looking right through me, right? And I'm like, do you know what? I'm like, I want to just share with you. I'm like, do you know that I am helping the Thomas Paine Memorial Association? And they're like, what? Sit down. What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, brother. I'm like, it's like, so it's an oh brother to me because they won't listen to me about my candidates. but they will listen to me. I'm so encouraged because they're so excited about the work that we're doing with the Thomas Paine Memorial Association, because most of these elected officials have a deep rooted love for history. I mean, I do, Margaret does, a lot of politicians do, because that was usually their minor. I mean, most of these people are very intelligent people, and history, that is the roots of learning about political science, in your academic studies. And when I brought up Thomas Paine Memorial, it's always like, Kristin, sit down. What do you want to tell us about? And it's so amazing, going on the campaign trail. Like I told you, in the primary, I was on a statewide race, which, this state is huge. It's a country, and
Yes.
I met so many, 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 many interesting people. And I would talk about, my candidate, and they'd look through me. Well, some of them didn't, my friends, people that I bought their lunch for, maybe they weren't looking through me. But then when I would bring up, the Thomas Paine Memorial, they would just like zone in. It was so amazing. And what I love about this work too is it's a bridge builder. We are so divisive in our politics these days, and in our political culture is so divisive. And I just love this because it's a bridge builder. I don't, everybody that I talk to is so excited about this work. So.
And that's so great that she brought up bridge building, because Thomas Paine was a scientist as well, and he designed a bridge which he was wanting to put over the Schuylkill River.
I know the Schuylkill.
Yeah, and there wasn't enough iron. So he had to go to England, where he was one of the most hated citizens there for his work, against the monarchy. Right. And he got it. Oh, by the way, he did get his bridge approved by the science community in France, by the university in Paris. But he built a sample of his bridge, and it was on display in England, and people were paying to walk over the bridge.
Oh, wow.
And it was quite the sight. And then he wrote The Rights of Man, and he ran for his life, barely missing the king's horsemen coming to arrest him for seditious acts.
Well, I got to tell you, so Cujo Halstead is a good friend of mine, Tom, and Tom and I are the epitome of good politics. I promise you, him and I don't see eye to eye on more than about 75% of things, which I think is most of us. Mm-hmm. But I will also promise you that him and I have sat down and had conversations on things that I completely, before the conversation, felt one way. And by the time it was all over with, I felt another. I'll tell you which one it is. It's universal health care. Tom was like, let me explain this to you. And I was the guy going, I'll be damned, I've worked my whole life. Go figure it out on your own. And then him and I had a conversation, and we believed it. Him and I have had many conversations like that. So for him to say this is his kind of topic, this is absolutely in his wheelhouse of things that he understands. He sends me stuff all the time where I go, you're a lunatic. And then he is, look, I'm telling you though, Kristin, he's a nasty troll. If he gets a hold of somebody, he is a nasty troll that will, he's the troll under the bridge. Trust me. But I love him. I love him for it because he's good at it. And he knows his stuff. He's one of these people that's not foolish about it.
Oh, that's
so Tom knows his stuff. So so how is this going? Like, I know Kristin's saying, hey, people hear it and they get behind it. You've got 16 people signing a bill, but what does it really take? Because I think that's the big thing. Like, I don't understand it. Like, in my mind, well, if you want it built, just sign off and they'll go build it. I don't quite understand it. So what have you really learned? Because I can't imagine, Margaret, that you knew right off the bat, or you even, Kristin, knew off the bat, like what this would take to get something like this to happen. What has been the process that you're figuring out if somebody thought like, hey, I could do this too.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing we did was we started our 501c3 so we could start getting donations for the effort. And the Thomas Paine Memorial Association is an educational 501c3. People can make donations and get the write-off. We introduced it in January of this year. And within a couple of months, we had $500,000 in donations and pledges to put towards this effort.
Wow.
So this particular effort to put a Thomas Paine Memorial in Washington, D.C. will not cost the taxpayers one penny.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's all paid for. So then we moved forward with finding someone who could help us, and that became Jamie Raskin, who actually named his son after Thomas Paine. And he was all in. He made videos for us. He presented in February of this year the House Bill 6720 to Congress, and we began the process of finding co-sponsors. We just announced the co-lead for HB 6720 is Victoria Spartz, and she's a Republican. So this is truly a bipartisan bill. And so we're moving forward. And one of the big things that we had to overcome was you have to testify in front of the National Committee of Monuments. And that's
a thing.
A board of commissioners, and they all, have opinions, and they gave us a date where we could present in front of them, and we did, and we were, I have to say, diverse. We all gave our certain stories within 4 minutes. By the time we had all of our testimony, they immediately took a vote, and they immediately 100% endorsement of House Bill 6720. So they were very impressed with our presentation.
That's awesome.
People can see it on the Free Thought Society YouTube channel. And it was our presentation on July 27th of this year.
So now I think about it's DC. There's a committee for everything. There's a group for everything. What kind of, going into something like that, how do you even prepare for that? Because, we've all watched, for those of us that remember when C-SPAN first came around, we've all seen all the different things. How do you mentally get ready? Because a lot of that stuff is going to be broadcast all over the place, or if it's not, you're putting it on your YouTube channel. There's a lot of, you never know what these folks are going to ask you either. So how did you prepare for something like that?
Well, we decided that everyone should tell their personal story about why Thomas Paine is important to them and why his legacy is worth honoring. So we had a Black representative who talked about how she couldn't relate to any other founding father except for Thomas Paine, who did not own slaves and who was so brave that he even chastised Thomas Jefferson for having slaves. One of Thomas Paine's best friends was Thomas Jefferson, but he still criticized him for owning slaves. We had a Generation Z representative where she talked about how it's important for the youth to understand a founding father that was well ahead of his time, and that he was brave, and that he, stood up for certain rights that are happening now and should continue. So we had her. We had a veteran who talked about serving in his capacity and having a hero in Thomas Paine as another veteran. And then, I spoke, and Jamie Raskin spoke. So it was, really an impressive group of people.
It was very powerful. It was very powerful. I was felt like I was seated in the room of giants. It was just it was so inspirational.
And that's what we tell people. When we ask them to contact their legislator to ask them to sign on to the bill. We say, tell your legislature your story, why you think it's important. Of course, say you're a constituent, give your address and your name, but tell your story. Even if it's my favorite quote is, and then, talk about what it means to you to have that quote in your head, a quote of Thomas Paine, the world is my country, to do good is my religion.
That's another great one. I love that. The world is my country, to do good is my religion. That's another great one. But now, Kristin, who is texting you? Who's texting you?
I don't. You know what? Let me just tell you. Okay, this is my issue. I have a big fundraiser happening at 6:00, and everybody is like, the interns are like, we can't find it, and I'm like, my God, I spent. Never mind. It's just
tell the interns. Yes. They're not getting paid. They're interns.
Don't do that, because they won't
figure it out, or they're not getting credit. Tell them figure it out, or they're not getting credit.
We're writing letters of recommendation for them.
That's right. Tell them figure it out, or you don't get credit. This is called life. Figure it out, or you don't get credit for this.
Well, let me just tell you.
Tell me, Kristin.
Different. I was different as a child, as a teenager.
Well, you fought bears. You were fighting bears. You fought a bear, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, and I was a hard worker. I fought a bear. Many. I'm like, I'll have to send pictures, but. No,
figuratively or real?
no, they're figurative.
Figurative. Oh, we all dropped out for a second. So now Nathan has one of the most important questions that he's good about this. I will always give him credit about this. So once you found out that everybody had approved, that entire council approved, what food did you go to celebrate? Like, what was the meal afterwards?
Oh.
This is Thomas Paine. Did you go 1775 porridge and mead? Did we go more modern? What did we do here?
Well, unfortunately, my food allergies limit me, so I can't indulge in anything that was made in the 1700s, like corn and wheat and rye and all of that. I haven't had a beer in 50 years. So, but that
wait a sec. I thought you were 25.
I just celebrated my 72nd birthday.
Oh God!
But I tell people that I have age dyslexia because I only feel 27.
You and my wife sold your soul to the same people. My wife is the same way. We'll go places, and I'm going to tell on myself for a moment. You ready for me to tell on myself for a moment?
Yeah.
So I tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus.
Oh, no.
Tore all three of them. One shot. Gone.
Oh.
In the process, this woman says to my wife, "Is your father okay?"
Oh no.
Yeah, that was the feeling. Look, it was like this.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
My best friend and his husband are like, "Did she really just say that? You're never living that down." I hate you all. I hate everyone in the room right now. Yeah.
I love it when I'm out with my grandson and people say, "Your mom."
Oh,
referring to me.
I know.
That's pretty awesome.
So, my daughters, and they're like, "Are you the older sister?" I'm like,
"Yes." It doesn't happen. All this gray up in this beard, that shit don't happen.
If you would color it, then it changes. Like we do. Like if I.
Dirty word. You can't look at this skunk. Look at this skunk in this beard.
It looks good.
It's that whole old man thing. Nate says no pizza. How? I understand. Nick can hear about it. He needs to listen to the podcast too. So how much longer do we have to wait till the statue's up and we're ready to go?
Well, one of the commissioners said, wouldn't it be great if we could push this ahead and within 4 years celebrate the grand opening and unveiling of a Thomas Paine Memorial? We don't anticipate that it'll be speeding along at that pace, but we're hopeful because it would be a wonderful time to do that. And you know, I want to be able to be at the ceremony. I don't want this to drag on. You know, I want it to be within 4 years.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it won't drag on because we have a game changer on board with us.
What's
Peter
that?
Quo. Peter Quo is the vice chair of the California GOP, the CAGOP, and he is amazing. He is Mr. Entrepreneur. He has venture capitalist companies. He is so well liked. You know, there's a lot of division within the CAGOP, but one thing that we're all united about is Peter Quo. Everybody loves Peter Quo. And he is our Republican advocate. So
we just added him a few weeks ago, and we're so excited that he may be joining us in our next legislative pitch. We do have another committee to go through, the Congressional Memorial Natural Resources Committee. So we have to go through that.
Natural resources.
Yes.
What is that about?
Well, they're very careful about what goes on public land.
But
So,
why natural resources? Like,
well, they have to see the impact of a memorial.
there's a lot of people. There are a lot of members assigned to that commission.
like I feel like don't they? So we're gonna get into a Sean's political moment for a second. Don't they get extra money for each one of these little like councils and boards and?
No, it's all part of a legislator's duty.
I thought they got extra cash for that. Like they get on these and then they get extra influence and all these other things.
Influence, of course, yes. Go ahead, Kristin.
They all get assigned to a committee. Mm-hmm. And so some people are like to the finance committee, some people are for housing committees, and these are our legislators that were assigned to the natural commissions. So there's so many committees. They don't get paid. This is a part of their, like Margaret was saying, this is a part of their duties. Everybody gets assigned. And some people want to get on different committees over others, you know, but it's usually seniority that
seniority prevails. See, when I run for office, Kristin is going to get my shit together for me.
I can't wait.
So that I'm the first libertarian to actually do it the right way.
And I need to get you on board now, though, because you need to start fundraising, because all of these take so much money.
Well, you know, kind of bringing all this up and kind of thinking about this for a moment. A lot of these folks that we've kind of mentioned, Thomas Paine and these folks that have run for different offices, they understood that start from the bottom, local government, and move up. Mm-hmm. And that's what you do, Kristin. You know, we talk about this. You're very heavily involved in local. Margaret, getting this thing moving. You didn't say that you went to DC the very first time, walked up to, you know, Pennsylvania Avenue and knocked on the door and said, hey, I'd like a Thomas Paine statue stuck somewhere. You worked on streets, you worked on parks, you worked on, you know, different areas. What would you tell someone, either one of you, if they're thinking about getting in, either they have something that they would like to see memorialized that they believe is that impactful to the nation, or they're thinking about getting into politics? What were some of the things that either one of you would say, hey, this really needs to be your approach before you try to, you know, stand on the biggest stage out there, which as a libertarian, I promise you that's our biggest problem is we think, well, I'm going to run for president. I'm going to run for governor. I'm going to run for, you know, everything that I can, but we forget about the dog catcher. We forget about the postmaster general, and we never create a ground roots movement that says, wow, this entire state has kind of gone this way. Maybe we should look at that. Right. So what's some of your suggestions?
Well, I think that first of all, working with many, different candidates, I've seen what's worked and what hasn't. And what I definitely know that works is the candidates that like prevail are the ones who are involved locally at commissions. Like they are involved with different nonprofits. They have they have leadership positions in different big organizations or even nonprofits, you know, like I'm not going to run. I will probably never run, but like I'm on the board of, the board of directors for Global Hope 365, that is about human trafficking, and the board of directors for League of Minority Voters. So what you need to do is find your passion, truly find your passion. There's so many people that are interested in politics, but you need to find your lane, find your lane, let's say, the reason why I got into this, I told you, was because I was worried about my children's future, So what did I do when my kids were in school? I got involved with the board of, the board of not the board of supervisors, but, the board at the school. And then I got them involved in different humanitarian efforts. That's always spoke to my heart. Social politics is more important to me, is one of the most important aspects of politics in my mind. Social politics. How do we make this community, small and large, better for everyone that's in there? It's not about the power. It's not about the money. It's about making our world better, So find your passion, find what you're interested in, if you're interested in education, then go and go to children, they have all these kinds of groups, parent revolt groups, they have groups on children, on school choice, school choice nonprofits. So find your niche and find what you're passionate about and focus on that. Just focus on that. And if you want to get into politics, start local. Even before you get the bottom, it goes being on a school board, city council, and then it goes to mayor. But there's all these things before you get to that level. You could be on, every city council has commissions that are appointed. So you start getting involved with your city, and you go to their city council meetings, you see what's involved there, and you get involved locally, So, and you can get appointed for commissions for you could get appointed to work on the park and rec. You could get appointed for helping the elderly, and you start local and you find out what is your passion, and you can start this when, I've seen people start this when they're 14, 15, it's amazing, but it's a long journey, but you have to find what is your passion that speaks to you, because that is what's going to help people. If you find your passion to help people.
And I'm hoping some of your viewers will get passionate about Thomas Paine and join our efforts. We're going to put on a January event 2023 in celebration of Thomas Paine's birthday, and it's going to be called Proclamation Celebration. And what we're going to do is we're going to teach people how to write a Thomas Paine Day proclamation. And we're going to have samples of the proclamations I've written and had approved over the years. But the proclamations are going to be read by our big shots on the board. On our board, we have Anne Duran, who is Carl Sagan's widow. We have John Delancey, the actor, and his wife, the actress. And last year, she sang a song for us about Thomas Paine. So the program is going to be very educational, and we want people in the grassroots level to become involved in getting more and more Thomas Paine Day proclamations, because what we're edging up to is a national proclamation declaring June 8th as Thomas Paine Day.
That's his birthday. That's his birthday.
No, it is. The birthday is January 29th.
Okay.
But the reason we choose June 8th is that's the date of his death. And what they do in England and France is they don't celebrate someone's birth when they haven't accomplished anything. But on the day that they die, that is a celebration of their life and their accomplishments.
That's so very different.
Synchronize Plus, the weather is so much better in June. We can do parades, picnics, outdoor activities. In January, that's impossible.
So you will get 100% support from me,
Oh,
and here's why.
okay.
That's my 5-year-old's birthday, 6/8/17.
Oh,
So I mean, and knowing this, we should have named him Thomas Paine, but nope, he's got a way longer name than that. His name's like we screwed this kid over. He's got like 4 names, and
But
they're
you
all
didn't name him
long.
after a beer, right?
Nope.
that's
Didn't get
good.
a bear name. We saved that for like dogs and cats and stuff like that. That's animal. Like my cats' names are like Titan and Luna, so I named them after moons. You get it? I named them after moons because they're both black cats, so that makes sense to me.
Great.
Yeah, there you go. My
That's
wife,
very
my
clever.
wife threw it up there. Lucas Charles Vincenzo Murphy. That
Oh,
kid's so screwed.
that's so regal. He should run.
Write your name, kid. And he's gonna be like, I hate my parents. I hate them. write your full name. This sucks.
There was a Thomas Paine beer produced in the town of Sussex, England. And I do have a Thomas Paine beer bottle, but it's in storage right now. But I'm going to put it on eBay soon because we need to raise more money for more statues.
That's just it's so impressive to me what you folks have done. I mean, it really is because I guess it's just one of those things. There's so much division, left, right. Well, I'm Green Party, so I'm left, but I'm not as left as you are left, but I'm a different left. Myself being a libertarian, people say, "Well, you're right." I know. I think I'm moderate at the most. You just have to know me as a person to know that. But I mean, to kind of say Thomas Paine didn't give a shit who you were.
Right.
These were human rights. These were things that mattered. He did what he could at the time for the people he could at the time and said, this is what's right. We need to stand, common sense. People don't understand that, and correct me, Margaret, that was written in 1775, published, and instantly became a bestseller.
Yes. In fact, all of Thomas Paine's books were immensely, he was one of the most read writers in that era.
Really?
Yes. Age of Reason, Rights of Man, even his articles were well read.
Now, did he get involved in any of the I was talking with I don't know if it was my wife or who I was talking to about this, but did he get involved in the other silliness where, like, Jefferson, I know, was known to do this, create newspapers, badmouth somebody or badmouth something, and then be like, I don't know what y'all talking about. That wasn't me. Like,
well,
the equivalent of today of like,
Thomas Paine was a victim of terrible rumors, and a lot of people were busted for starting rumors about Thomas Paine to
like what?
To slur him. Well, one rumor was that Madame Bonneville's son, Thomas Paine, was actually Thomas Paine's son, not her husband's son. And Mrs. Bonneville actually sued for defamation, and she won. She was one of the first ladies to actually bring a case like that to court. Really? So, she wouldn't put up with the nonsense. But there's so many bad things that are written to slander Thomas Paine because people were frightened of him. People didn't like the fact that he even attacked George Washington.
Really? In what way?
Well, Thomas Paine was arrested in France for publicly saying that the king and queen and the royal family should leave the country, but do not murder people. He was against the reign of terror, and they considered his objection to what was happening traitorous. That and he couldn't help himself. He looked at human beings as precious commodities, even if they were kings and queens. So they threw him in jail in the Bastille. And he was there for almost 9 months.
Oh,
And
wow.
Jefferson appealed. Washington never moved a finger to help him. And it was James Monroe that finally got him out of prison just in the nick of time. He almost died in prison from illness, but also he was almost beheaded. There's a story about Thomas Paine being sick in his cell, laying on the straw bed, and he was too weak to move. So they left his cell door open. Well, when it was open, it was facing against the wall. One night, the executioner got a list of names and put a chalk mark on each door of each prisoner that was to be executed the next day.
Oh my.
Well, fortunately, Thomas Paine's door was shut and the X was facing him, not the outside.
Oh,
So he
wow.
escaped death that day.
Talk about luck of the draw right there.
Oh my
Wow.
Now, this could be legend or it could be truth.
Either way, it's a great story.
Oh, when I did my research about Madame Bonneville, I found the most wonderful stories about the way Thomas Paine treated his fellow prisoners. They loved him. They came to him for comfort. They came to him knowing that they were going to be executed the next day, and just to talk to him, to gather their strength. So I love looking at those accounts written by prisoners who later on wanted to tell everyone that the lies that were being circulated were untrue about Thomas Paine and that he was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
So
that's one of the things that I love about Thomas Paine is back to he was a bridge builder, and this is, when Margaret told me about the Thomas Paine Memorial Association, I'm like, there is no better time than to erect this monument because we are in such division in this country, and I really feel like the fact that Thomas Paine didn't ascribe to either parties, speaks volumes. A lot of people that speaks to their soul now too. No one really wants to become it's so tribal,
Mhm.
And I really think that in my heart, I think that if Thomas Paine were alive today, he would be president. He would be president of our country because he spoke to everyone. He had a message that went across party lines. He was there for everyone, and I really feel like that is needed in today. That's so, and back to what you were talking about, like Margaret and I, we ascribe to different parties. We think very differently about different worldviews. But we're friends, and I think that that's what we need to get back to. It's back to, it's all about being human. It's not about your label. It's about being and giving and gifting and being kind to one another and helping everybody make this world a better place.
Well, that's the lost art right there, isn't it? Here, look, this is for you. That's the lost art in all this. Is we can't hear the Zoom. I don't know what you're talking about, dear. My wife said can't hear the Zoom. I don't know what you're talking about. Come downstairs and talk to me.
Yeah, I want to see April.
You want to see April, babe? They want to see you, so you can come down now, or you can wait till after. She's like funny about coming on the show. No sound from the machine. She's saying,
"Oh,
she's not.
We didn't hear your special effects.
Oh, wait a
we didn't
sec.
hear audio
Really?
effects.
Hold on a sec. You're not hearing that?
No.
Really? See, that's why I said, like, I've got to figure out.
Yeah, that's telling us.
Let's try this. Did you hear that?
No.
You didn't hear that.
You're gonna have to fix this in post.
Did you hear that one?
No.
Didn't hear that one. All right, so now I've got to figure out what the heck did I do? Because I'm looking over here and look, see, here's my wife.
Hi,
Hi.
April. You're beautiful.
They said you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
She can't hear you because I got the earbuds in. I don't know
Yeah,
what
we can't hear.
you can't hear none
anything.
of those sound effects.
Nope.
None of my sound effects. I'm trying to find one like.
Nope.
Did that come through?
No.
Nope.
Son of a gun! Now I got to figure out what the heck did I do.
What it is, it's probably by texting interns.
It's your texting interns have shut down all my sound effects. I have
We heard those pings. We just don't hear your
Can't
sound
hear
effect.
anything.
I have no idea what's going on. Then I'll have to figure out what's going on with those. But so January we have the Thomas Paine
Birthday.
birthday.
Mhm,
June 8th, obviously, we're looking to make that into a holiday.
mhm.
Um,
No, a national proclamation.
National proclamation.
Mhm.
It's a holiday. Call it a
Which should
holiday.
be a
I want
holiday.
another day off of work. Call it a holiday.
It should
My
be
kid
a
wants a day
holiday.
off his birthday. Um,
You'll have to take that up with your local elected
I
official.
have to take it up with my local officials here to get that going.
This one.
Yeah, my local official is sitting in another chair over here next to me. My
And if
cat.
anybody wants to help talk to their legislators, I am here to give them guidance on what to say. And if they'd like to participate further, contact me. It's Margaret at thomaspainememorial.org.
And say it one more time, Margaret.
Margaret, Margaret, at thomaspainememorial.org.
And if you're those of you that are watching us live, we've got the ticker running across right now that says thomaspainememorial.org. If you go on Facebook, it's the Thomas Paine Memorial Association on Facebook. If you go, did I get it right?
Yeah.
You were making faces at me. I was like, no, I screwed it
Right.
up again. You can look that up. So you can go on the Facebook. You can find it there. You can find Kristin. She is Kristin.Manna5 on Instagram. She's got a 5 behind her name.
I
You
think
can
the
find.
listeners, I wasn't number one. I
That's
was
right.
kind of depressed.
But you're number
Or two-
one. You're number
or
one to
two-
us.
Or 2, 3, and 4. But thank you.
You're definitely number one to us, though.
Thank you.
So you can find Kristin there, and you can find Margaret and Kristin. Both are on LinkedIn. So you look them up on LinkedIn. They can talk to you there. That's more of the, stay away from their Facebook.
Yeah.
Their Facebook is for their kids and all those things. Go find them on LinkedIn. That's the professional spot to find people
Yeah.
for this kind of stuff. So find them there on their LinkedIn. Connect with them. Find out what's going on. See how you can donate again to the Thomas Paine. For those who don't know, Paine has an E at the end of it. Memorial.org. I'm just going to throw that out there for those of us that are like, oh, I don't know, can't find it. Spelled Paine a different way. P-A-N-E. I can't find it. So make sure you go out and you find them. If you happen to be, look, I'm going to throw this out here. I don't know if Kristin's looking for it or not, but I'm going to throw it out there. If you're looking to get involved in some politics, or you have questions about it, or you're thinking like, maybe this is something that I can do, shoot Kristin a message. She will be honest with you and be like, yeah, look, I don't know if your platform of whatever it is, squirrel rustling is an important political foundation. It's going to make sense, but reach out to Kristin. You're looking to donate money. You got a couple extra nickels sitting around. Again, reach out for the Thomas Paine Foundation. So all that's going on, as we always do on every show. I'm going to make Kristin go first this time because she already did this once before. So we're going to let Margaret go last. And neither one of you log off on me after this is over, because we got to talk for a moment. Kristin, what is your final word?
My final word is make this place a better place. Do what you can to spread kindness and love. There's so much division. There's so much just hatred in this world. And you know what? Let's just spread love and kindness and work on your community and make your community local, whether that be local at your county, at your state, at your country, at the world. Make this world a better place, because we all live in it and we should all love each other.
I like it. Margaret, what is your final word?
Well, I want to emphasize that if anyone would like me to come and do an assembly for children, they can go to the Free Thought Society website under the Thomas Paine tab, and there's an application that they can fill out to for me to come out. It's 100% paid for, and I have a nice donor that likes me to go out and do that for free. So if you're an educator or if you're a parent and you want to promote that educational program for your children, just go to that website and let me know. And I'll leave with my very favorite Thomas Paine quote, if there must be trouble, let it be in my time, that my child may have peace.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation, found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.